Hi, everyone. Welcome to our fourth episode of the Diversity in Conversation Design series. My name is Caio Calado. I'm going to be the host with you today, and I'm really excited to be here with Jess and Willian, and they're going to join us in a moment. So, first thing that I would like to say is welcome, everyone. We're really excited to be here. This is, as I said, the fourth time that we're meeting here. Um, Again, this is going to be really interesting because we have a really diverse and people from around the globe audience. So we have folks from Ceará, Brazil. Well, I can see I have many Brazilians here. We have folks from Germany. We have folks from California. I'm curious to see if we have other folks from different parts of the country, the world, to be honest, Nicaragua. So yeah, this is going to be really interesting. So I would like to hear. Uh, we have someone from United Kingdom. So yeah, BH. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting today. So Austin, Texas, and yeah. So please leave the comments saying where you are watching us from. So yeah, and today I got a request to don't make fun of with my name, but just don't make fun with my name. I need to explain, right? It's because Calado means shut up, and yeah, I'm not going to say that again. So my name is Caio Calado. Yeah, I think you got the idea. Yeah, we have a Martin from Peru as well, and yeah. So welcome everybody. This is, as I said, the fourth episode of this series. Today we're going to focus on culture. And this series is all about diversity. So one thing that is really important to say is that diversity is a really broad word. We can have many different meanings, and we can see this with many different angles. We could be talking here about language, location, gender, social class, sexual orientation, political views, or nationality, or yeah, many other different topics. All of this could be related to diversity. Today, we're going to explore a little bit more about culture, but culture has a big influence in basically everything, to be honest. And we're going to, yeah, be curious about what you have to say and what we would like to add to this discussion. So another thing that is important to say is about the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is about understanding that everyone is different. Equity is about offering fair and equitable access to opportunity. And inclusion is the energy and actions that we take to create environments that respect and value all people with all the differences. So on this event, we have some guidelines, and we would like to invite you to help us to make this an inclusive, respectful, and opening experience. We are humans, and we are here to learn and share with you. So we would like to keep things going, and yeah, keep the good vibe for everyone. Also, I would like to invite you to share your questions, comments, thoughts using the live chat feature. Like, we can see here that these are like live comments that we're taking here. So everybody's saying that where this person is watching from. So we would love to hear your thoughts and comments. So if you have anything to say, please, make a comment. We want to make this as interactive as possible. And last but not least, let's keep this like the conversation going after the event. So feel free to send a thank you note or message to the speakers. You can find the LinkedIn. You can find the LinkedIn in the description of this live streaming, and yeah, on LinkedIn as well. So one last thing to say is that you can also be an ally and help others to make the difference too. We are here to help everybody to open the mind and to have the conversations. Sometimes these are considered like some hard conversations to have, but we would like to invite you to have these conversations with your friends, with your co-workers, and anyone around you. And this can be helpful for everyone. And I'm sure that this is going to make a big difference for everyone. So I'm not going to make the joke with my name because I think some people know already, but let's focus on the agenda, today's agenda. So I'm going to invite every speaker to give like a really short introduction. Then we're going to have an open conversation and roundtable. Again, We love to make this a really interactive experience. Like we would love to hear your comments and questions, and yeah, and then we can finish this event with some closing thoughts. So let's start with the intro. The first guest that we have here today is Jess. Hi. Hello, Jess. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, I guess. I saw you have a cat, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry if she comes in. She's an attention seeker.
So you're head of user experience at Volley, right?
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit like what is Volley and what you do, and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Jess. I work at Volley as the head of user experience. Volley makes games and entertainment and other experiences for voice and smart speakers like Amazon Alexa and Google Home. We've got some of the most popular sort of games out there. The biggest one is probably called Song Quiz. It's like a name that tune kind of game where we play a little clip of music and you have to guess the answer. So yeah, my job kind of involves managing our portfolio of experiences. Still a fair amount of like conversation design as well for our products and for any new ones that we're designing. Yeah, and lots of fingers in many pies at the moment.
I have a friend, she loves cats as well. She said cats are also very welcome
Maybe
at Z.
I'll get her on then. She can be the guest.
Perfect. Our next guest is Willian. Hi, Willian. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. And you?
I'm great. How are things over there? Where
Things
are you
are
from?
fine.
Like you're.
Okay, let me tell a little bit about myself. I am from Brasilia, Brazil, which is the capital of this country. I work as a UX writer at Cinch, a global company. And my role here is to provide the best experience our users can have within our apps. So I work mainly with chatbots.
Perfect. Should I change the lights? So
No, we have this joke that we are in the same house or the same apartment, but in a different room. Let's keep it this way.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this way. All right. So, but I mean, just to let everybody know, we're distant. Like he's in Brasilia, I am São Paulo, completely different states, and yeah, I think it's 2-3 hours away flying, something like that. Perfect. Oh, there is the cat. Perfect. So let's start this conversation today. Enough of introductions. Now we're going to have the conversations and some of the questions. Again, I would like to invite the audience to share questions and to bring the comments to the table, and then we can make this a open conversation. So the first thing is about like when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation, what's the role of culture? Anyone like to start on this one?
I can start. I think this is a really interesting subject because culture can mean so many different things, like whether it's religious culture or social or like the country you grew up in versus the heritage that you have. So I think culture isn't always one specific thing that you can define for you, and you might be a mix of different cultures and you might be of one and then adopt another if you move or if you're around different people. So I think it's really interesting to talk about this because it's not a very easy thing to talk about, but it kind of makes it even more important. I just think that inclusivity is the most important thing to talk about. So if we're talking about conversation design and how we write experiences, being as inclusive as possible is critical so that you can be mindful and sort of welcoming of everyone's culture and therefore hopefully wouldn't like offend people or just sort of say the wrong thing that might be fine for you but might not be an all right thing in someone else's culture or part of culture.
Awesome. I think Jess mentioned that we actually deal with different cultures on our everyday basis, and the culture is always changing. So we deal with a lot of people with different cultures every day, and we do have to understand that we have to respect, everybody's culture, and we have to understand they have a saying when talking about their culture. So, for example, it is quite easy to see that some people say, "Well, but I don't understand why this person is this way or that way because I'm not." But that's the thing, we are different human beings, we are shaped by the people who are around us, and this is the understanding of culture that we have to respect and include, and, well, take it into consideration.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Like, so I am I would say I'm lucky and grateful for have the opportunity to live in different countries and different states. But today I feel like I'm losing my own identity sometimes, because wherever I go, I need to adjust a little bit myself to the location. And there's so many things that goes on this. Like, it's not about the space, like the physical space that I am, but the weather, and that implies also in the persons, like the people that I see around me, like the mood that they have, the way that they say things, the way that they pronounce things, the accent, the language, the slangs, and yeah, many of these things. Um, does this have an impact on you? Like, do you think that this can imply also on the conversation designs that you do? Um, yeah, I remember like in the past, one day I did a conversation design, like a project for like a specific area in Brazil. Then I needed to, but I was living in another one. And for the people that I was working with, some of the things that I say in that project, they're like, I don't know if we should say something like this. And I'm just like, well, but you know, over there they do speak in this way. How do you know that? I'm from there. And yeah, I can validate with the people over there. But yeah, do you think there is an influence on that? Like,
Yeah, I have the same experience. So I'm from London, United Kingdom, but I live in San Francisco, California. And then also my heritage is a mixture of like Indian and Caribbean. So I have a lot of different like cultures that I've been surrounded by. So, and I think definitely moving to the US and working and writing for a US audience has been sometimes challenging because there are so many nuances that I didn't realize existed. So especially when I first began, some phrases that I would use, people around me would say, I don't understand what that means, even though we're speaking the same language. They just have never seen that phrase before. And I would say, oh, I thought that was something that everyone used. And turns out, no, it's specifically for the UK or for British or for London slang. So yeah, it definitely influenced how I act around people as well, because you have to try and assimilate a little bit. So not necessarily, but there's a pressure to sort of fit in a little bit more. So I definitely, my friends back home have told me that I talk differently now that I'm out here, which is sometimes just unconscious, that it just because you're surrounded by people and they were talking in a certain way, and also the activities you do might be different here. So it definitely has changed like who I am as a person, and then also I've been forced to change how I write depending on the audience. So if I'm writing for UK people, then I feel a lot more comfortable, or like it feels more natural because I think I know that audience better from growing up there. But yeah, American audiences, I have to sort of take an extra minute to think about whether the wording I've chosen is actually the best fit for the audience that are going to be listening to it.
This is quite interesting, Caio, because I used to be an English teacher and I taught English for almost 10 years. And one thing that I said in classroom was, I don't only teach the language itself, I teach culture. So you have to understand the culture also. And the first moment, like personally, that I had a shock by facing the American culture was when I went to the interview to get my visa. And then I realized that Americans are straight up. They're straight to the point. They're direct. And when you design a conversation for this audience, you have to take this into consideration. And Caio can confirm that we Brazilians, we like to chat. We are not direct to the point. We like to go round and have this conversation. So it's different. So when we realize this difference in culture, I think we have to look at it as different, not as wrong, because some people look at it in a wrong way. This is wrong. Why are they being rude to me? Well, let me say something. They're not being rude. This is part of their culture. This is who they are. Okay, they can be rude in a different, they can be rude. I mean, it's not like they can't, but this is how they actually deal in this manner. So it was the first moment that I had this shock of culture that I realized, well, I guess this is going to be a yes or no question, thing that I answer yes or no and hope to get my visa.
That's a really good, I would say that Americans are more direct. I think British people we don't talk as much, but we sort of couch our language a little bit in politeness, so we don't necessarily get to the same sort of directness, I would say, as Americans. So like even just asking simple questions, I feel like British, we're more likely to say like, may I have something, or would you like something, or could I? A lot more like conditional sort of wording, and US are like, do you want this? I'm going to do this. Are you like, do you accept this? Things like that, which gets to the point a lot better, but it doesn't have that ring of like impoliteness. Whereas I think if we were to use that sort of language in the UK, especially when it comes from like voice assistants like Alexa, I think it can often be. I remember I designed something actually for the UK for Alexa, and I used sort of more direct phrasing, and we got a review from someone who said that Alexa was really rude to her just because the way that it had been phrased just was too direct for that British person, so they thought it was rude. So I think so much thought has to go into like that person's culture and that country's culture and how something might be interpreted.
You know what? You mentioned about Alexa. It's really interesting how Alexa down here is using Mimi and trending topics a lot to create conversations. I don't know, does it happen over there in the US or in UK?
What does Mimi?
Memes, like funny comics things.
Oh,
yeah.
See, this is a good example. You say memes, or I say memes.
Memes, yeah. In Portuguese, I would say meme, which
Oh,
is a different pace. And I think William would pronounce different than I. Can you pronounce William?
I would say meme.
No, in
say-
Portuguese.
In Portuguese?
Yeah.
In Portuguese?
Meme.
Meme.
Minute. Okay.
Meme.
Yeah.
Meme.
But my T pronunciation is different than William's pronunciations because it's
Yes.
from the place that I'm from.
Mhm.
If you hear my accent, you can say, "Oh, you're from this area."
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, what about Alexa? Like, is it really different from you, like countries and stuff?
I haven't seen many memes, but the phrasing is different in the UK to the US. Alexa, not just the voice, obviously the accent of the voice is different in the US and the UK, but I do think the way that everything is phrased in the UK sounds more polite. I would not that Americans aren't polite, but it has that like extra politeness layer that I don't think is as required in the US.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we have this impression that it's polite, but it's not necessarily polite, right?
Yeah.
So it's just different. And yeah, there is one question here from Nimit, which I think is interesting, and it's kind of related to what we were saying. Is like, when designing a conversation bot/user for a chatbot, do we need to study or do research for our target audience, or any suggestion how we can achieve this? Do you think this is important?
yeah, I think research is really important, and then on top of that, testing after you've written something with that audience to see how that's received is really important to make sure that you're sort of respecting that culture or respecting that audience as much as possible, especially if you're not from there. You can make a lot of assumptions as to what you think is going to be okay or what is going to be easily understood, but you won't really know that until you've done research. So yeah, definitely.
Well, please, Nimit, this is something which is really important, because sometimes we design a conversation the way we want our users to talk to us, but this is not actually the truth. The truth is we have to design for how they actually talk, for how they actually communicate. So, for example, I designed a conversation for the government here in Brazil, and I had to understand that people from all how could I put this? I would have people with no education at all and people highly graduated talking to this bot. So I had to come into a sense that the language put in the bot would have to be accessible for everybody to understand. So this is important because you include everybody in your conversation design, and this is really important.
I was looking for my mouse. Yeah, there are so many different ways to touch this. I remember one time Coca-Cola did a promotion a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, was basically like an environment action to help people to recycle cans. And I know this because one of my friends designed it, and she told me how she did and how fun it was, because the greetings message would be different depending where you are in Brazil. So the idea of the sorry for this motorcycle. So the idea of the welcoming message would be the same, but how the Coca-Cola bot would start the conversation would be completely different depending where you are. So in like one of the examples that she said was like in Bahia, for example, the bot would say like, "E aí, meu rei," which is like, "Hey, my king." It's a really common or king, queen if you're a woman. So rainha. Yeah, and in the south would be like che. Che is like a really common slang for anyone, like che or ba. I mean, whatever. I'm just saying local things for Brazilians, but yeah. So she designed this local sayings to greetings everyone, and she was really smart on that. I don't know if have you ever experienced something like this, to think about the geography, about your audience, and then come up with specific messages for each and every one of them?
We have in our game Song Quiz, after you guess the answer, the game has like little phrases that congratulate you, and sort of they're quite funny, and they're jokes, and they make everyone enjoy the game a bit more. But we try and make them quite specific to the context of like who we think you are. So if you're playing in the US, you'll have more US stereotypical like classic phrases that we think are more appropriate there. In the UK, they'll be different. And then also depending on what playlist you're playing, we find that people choose different genres and playlists of music because typically they are nostalgic for that time of their life. So if they choose to play in the 80s, we can usually assume that they either just are whatever age, but they know their 80s music really well, or they grew up in the 80s and that's the music that they love and they want to remember. So we try and also include like little phrases that were popular during that time of that decade as well, so people can hear that slang that they might not have heard in a long time and sort of feel really nostalgic for that era that they love.
This is really nice, but something that really stuck in my head, Kai, was as a designer, I have to be really careful with what I design. And there is something that people usually take for granted, you know? For example, which is normal to see people, talking to Japanese people and say, "Oh, you're Japanese. Can you make me 2 origamis, please?" And then, well, just because I belong to that culture, does it really mean that I really have to know? Or, okay, I do understand it's my culture, but can you please notice that I'm not interested in this? So this is something that really caught my attention, to be aware. What do you think of this? Am I being like crazy here thinking
No, I think
about this? Yeah, Jess, sorry.
yeah, no, I think that's super important, because I think that there's a difference between culture and like race and ethnicity, and a lot of people make assumptions based on like what visually they have assumed to be someone's race or ethnicity, and that doesn't mean that the culture associated with that country or that religious group has anything to do with that person. So like you could look like you were from Japan, for your example, but maybe you grew up in America and not around people from Japan, and so your culture could be very, very different. So like I think there's a lot of difficulty when people just make very sort of surface assumptions based on what they can see, and I think culture is something that's so complex that you really can never assume someone's culture until you've learned more about that person and understood who they are and what has influenced them during their life.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think as long as we understand that we are trying to be respectful and acknowledge that, I think it's going to be okay. Like as long as you understand the differences and know how that we are different in a sense. So, for example, when I moved to the US one day, like I got used it like in Brazil. I don't know if you know this in UK. Tell me, Jess. It's common that Brazilians they greet everybody with 2 kisses in the cheek.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do that in UK?
Not in the UK, but other countries in Europe typically do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was moving to the US was a little bit strange for me, but at the same time it was interesting because some people got curious about that and just like, it's just this, and it's not a big deal. But usually like shake hands or hey, what's up, or something like that. But yeah, Brazilians in general, we're really touchy people, and yeah, we like to touch and keep having conversation. And I think that's why the way that we usually say things, we just go around and stick to the topic. And I mean, not stick to the topic, like open threads with different topics inside of the conversation, like I'm doing right now. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So let's go and move to another question. So this is a question about designing for a foreign culture. What to consider when designing in a foreign culture? Any of you would like to start on this? Maybe Willian?
Yeah, this question is really interesting because you have to put away your beliefs, you have to actually go after, do research, and understand to whom you are designing this product, this conversation. Because sometimes, as Jess said, a sentence or a word that you use in your native language represents something really offensive in another language. So my answer here, the point is, be careful, do research, understand your audience, be careful. And I believe that if you have all this in mind, and if you follow, because when we design it, in my case, when I design a conversation for a audience that is foreign, I try to follow Grice maxims. If I follow Grice maxims, it's going to be successful. So I do have to create communication. I have to understand, and I have to be understood in a respectful way, and following the GRASS maxims, so I can design a good experience for the users. So as long as you have all this, well, I think you won't have problems.
Yeah, agree completely. I think as long as you're respectful and you actually have awareness that you're writing for a foreign culture, and not just assume that whatever works for you is going to work everywhere else. And yeah, just be careful and do research as to who you're writing for. And I think it's like there's so much to culture. It's not just like the culture of the audience that you're writing for, but also culture kind of informs the context as to who you're writing for. So a lot of what the games that we're working on right now, we think a lot about the context of where people are going to be listening to this, because and that can be informed by culture and who they're with. So a lot of Alexa devices are in people's homes, and in America there is still some kind of sort of family culture, even if it's not as strong as in other countries. There's this idea of people grouping together in the evenings as a family and playing games together on the weekends and in the evenings. And that's quite specific to this culture, because there are others where other cultures don't have the 9-to-5 work day and things like that. So when you're writing for that culture, it's not just about what words you're using, but also making sure to remember not just who your audience is, but where they are, what they might be doing in their day, and how they might, in what situation they might be approaching whatever it is that you're designing.
Agree.
Yeah, and that goes in many different things, like where they are. For example, I'm from a city that 5 p.m., 6 p.m., it's night. Down here in Sao Paulo, not always. And yeah, when I was living in the US, I was living in Chico, California. And yeah, I mean, California, sometimes it's not like the San Francisco weather is always kind of gray.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
Is it now?
It is gray.
Yeah, but yeah, in my city, for example, 6 p.m. it's a time that usually people are at home, like resting, and it's the end of the day. And here in São Paulo, 6 p.m. people just in a rush, like going around, and everybody's just in a hurry to get somewhere. And having this understanding can help us. I think that's why, like, I don't know about you, but I like to read a lot scripting, like movie scriptings and how they develop characters. I think this has a great addition to the character development and how we are going to design conversations. There is a Brazilian, Louise. She works for like a Brazilian. It's a conversational design school in terms of like teaching. It's a lot. She does educational chatbots that helps people to learn things. And one day I was having a conversation with her, and we were talking about like this character development. And the thing that she likes to think about is the environment of this chatbot. Like, it's not only about the name, the gender, but what is in the environment, like what is around this personality. And that she was just like, that can tell you so many things about this person, or like the character of this bot. And I think the same applies to the culture itself. Don't you think? Or is it like a crazy idea to think about this?
No, I agree.
Yeah, let's see another question here. I think I was thinking another direction. So another thing to discuss is about the localization of the content. Like, is there a difference between the localization versus the translations? Like how the translation is different from localization? Any of you has a take on this?
Yeah. Translation is the transformation of a word. That's it. That's all it does. And when you talk about localization, you are considering linguistic and cultural appropriation. So, for example, if I translate piece of cake to Portuguese, it won't make sense But in English, it means easy. So the translation doesn't mean much. So translation is only the transformation of a text. And localization is when you take into consideration the culture, the the linguistic that your audience is used to. So I believe that's the difference.
Yeah, completely agree. I think people always ask us why Volley hasn't released games in Spanish, because there's such a huge audience of Spanish speakers that would enjoy our games, and we agree that's definitely something we want to do. But one of the reasons we haven't done it is because we want to be so careful when we do it that it's not just a translation, because we just don't think that's how you should be sort of localizing your games, because us just translating from US English into Spanish or any other language is really not going to deliver the quality of experience that we want. And we don't know how many things are just not going to make sense in Spanish or any other language, or just could potentially be offensive. So the process of localization takes a lot longer, because you have to think of more than just how do you say this exact phrase in Spanish or whatever language. It's how do I convey the same message in this other language, which is a much more complex process and takes more time, but should obviously be done because it's so important.
And this is interesting, Jess, because I do work with Hispanic countries. So I work with Honduras, El Salvador, Peru, Colombia. And when people mention, could you please translate? And then I say, well, we are not going to do that. We're going to localize this text. We're going to change it in a way that makes sense to the audience we are, which is our goal. Because if we just translate, that's so empty.
Yeah, and I think someone commented it, Flavia, but it's true as well. Like, localization happens in the same language as well. So the difference between sort of for English, for US English and UK English, we discussed this already, it's different. So if you want to release something in another English speaking country, you still have to localize. And one thing we're in the process of doing now for our game Song Quiz is localizing it for the UK, because it exists in the UK, but it was translated, and so it's word for word exactly the same. The music is exactly the same, and obviously culturally, people in the UK listen to different music than people in the US, and there is an overlap, but it's not 100%. So we have so many reviews from people in the UK who are like, this music is all American. This is not what I don't know these songs. Like, I didn't grow up listening to these songs. Where are all these artists and bands and whatever that I know? So yeah, even beyond sort of localizing for another language, just localizing for the same language in another geography is super important. The same would apply to Canada and Australia and any other English-speaking country. Yeah, it's difficult.
I was thinking, we have a similar, not issue, but a similar thing with Portugal. So in Brazil, we speak Portuguese. In Portugal, they speak Portuguese. But there's Portugal Portuguese, and there's the Brazilian Portuguese. When you were speaking, in my mind, I was kind of thinking, like, how is the experience of like switching these Portuguese from Portugal and Portuguese from Brazil? Is it different for you? Like, how do you suffer, or like, do you need to adjust yourself?
For me, it's not too different. There are some phrases that mean very different things here, or just don't. It's more that things don't exist. So recently, I've been in the US for maybe 4 years now, and only 2 weeks ago, I learned that there's a phrase that I've been using this entire time that no one understood. I say like good shout or great shout. If something is a good idea, I'll be like, oh, that's a good shout. Well, that's a great idea. So if you say, do you want to go get pizza? I'll be like, good shout. But I said this in a conversation 2 weeks ago, and someone said, what? what do you say? And I was like, good shout. And he was like, no, I don't understand that. So I had to be like, oh, good idea. And it's great. I feel like there'll always be things that you won't know, which is why when writing, you have to be so careful to check things and test with people from that place and that culture to make sure that you're not accidentally saying things that make no sense to people.
This is so interesting, Jess, because when I first went to the US, I was like, I'm ready. I've got my visa. I've been, teaching English. I was a teacher already. I've been teaching English for the past, 5 years. I am so ready. And then on my first day, a lady just, I ordered something, and this lady said, "Have a good one." And I was like, "A good one? What? Excuse me." And then she was like, "Have a good day." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I understood at that point that have a good one is to have a good day.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I was so not prepared for this. So this is really interesting. And I have this British friend, and he mentioned that not only the sentences, like different phrases and stuff, but also pronunciation. So I don't know if you know, but he's from Leeds.
Yeah.
Which is like really, I don't know if it's countryside, but it's
it's a city, but it's far north compared to London. So yeah, people from Leeds talk very differently to like how I would talk. And even I don't talk the same. Even within London, there are different accents.
Exactly, because he was saying in London, people would say like water, I don't know. And then in Leeds, they would say water.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. So what? Yeah. So there's this difference in pronunciation. I was like, wow.
Water is the hardest thing for me to order in America because no one can understand me when I ask for water. Because I say water, you're right, other people say water. But if I ask for water here, every time they're like, what? So I have to say water, and then they understand me.
Exactly.
Why?
So this is a personal story. I don't know if you know, Willian. I learned English by myself. I learned English watching TV series. I can tell you the show, and then when I realized that was a really crazy show, it's Doctor House MD. I don't know if you watched that one. Yeah, and there is a particular situation when I moved to the US. So I remember like yesterday. So that was me ordering my first Burger King in the US. I was in the line. I got my burger, and then I wanted to have some things to clean my mouth. And then I went to the cashier. This is going to sound weird, so I'm just giving a heads up. So I said, like, "Excuse me, can I have some kidnappings here?" And then the cashier was like, "What?" And then I was just like, "Can I have some kidnappings here?" And then the cashier was confused and like, "What are you saying?" And then my friends, they heard and they understood what I was looking for. Then they said like, "Kyle, it's napkins." And then I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm looking for napkins. I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't say that. Took it out. And then just like, oh, okay. I was about to call the police. I was just like, okay, I'm so sorry. And
and she was right to call the police.
So that's the thing. Like, I have some stories like this, and that happens when you're learning and like a language by yourself. And that was one of the stories that I still remember the face of the cashier. Just like, what? And then it happened to me. But thanks God I learned this. And once in a while I do say some things wrong, but you know what? Today I'm more open to say things wrong. Like, oh, okay, sorry. Can you help me to pronounce this? And that took some time, like, to build this. I have some confidence that I can make myself understood, but I understand that sometimes I say things not in the correct way. But then I think like, well, but I don't speak Portuguese 100% correct, like the grammar. So I think that's what makes us like human, right? Like, we make these small mistakes. Sometimes this is what make the human thing really human. Okay, that's enough of side story. So, and I mean,
Well,
otherwise I'm
it's
going to
not.
start to embarrass myself here.
No, don't worry. It's not your mother tongue. You're learning, you're making an effort, and that's respectful. And what you said, Caio, just brings up a topic really interesting, which is being open minded to realize that, you sounded at least weird in the situation, but you understood that, oh, I'm so sorry. I meant this. And this makes a connection to what Mary Constance Sparks commented here in this live.
Yeah.
She asked the question, how can we avoid imposing dominant culture and narratives in something so personal as language use, and identity? Mary, I believe the answer for this question is for the company to have open-minded designers and at least the idea that the company understand the difference between a translator and a person who works with localization. Having this in mind, understanding this difference is the first step. So for you to have a product or a service that is narrative free, or without your personal perceptions on the service or product, you have to have designers open-minded, thinking on something else. Because there's this saying, Annie Mary said on ontological design. She said, we design our world while our world acts back on us and design us. So the world is designing us all the time, because we design for our world, but on the other hand, the world is designing on us all the time.
I like that.
I need to say that I needed to imagine this in my mind. Yeah, like architect. I mean, I don't know if you know, but lots of the things that we have in technology comes from architecture. Like architectures are, we don't see this, but if you think for a moment, architectures design physical spaces that makes the interactions between humans, and that's really crazy to think of it. There is a area called cybernetics, and there's so many influences on that area that they are actually architectures, and just like because they need to understand how the social environment also can combine and have some implications and be influenced by the physical spaces. So when we have someone thinking about how the physical space is going to influence the social aspect of it, that's really crazy to think. And I think that goes the same for the language as well. Not only like the people, but like what they say and how they say it's going to have a big influence. And as conversation designers, we can leverage this. Like we can understand how people have a conversation and take advantage of this. I think you kind of mentioned this a few moments ago about the Bowles Grice maxims. I don't remember who said it. If it was Willian or
about Grice's maxims.
Yeah. Was it you, Jess?
No, it was Willian.
I said it.
Oh. Jess, do you have a take on Mary's questions? I don't know if you remember.
I mean, I just wanted to say as well that what Willian said was like so perfectly describes what I think is that it's not just us designing the world is designing us. And I think what that means is that, as Willian said, we need to be open-minded all the time, but we also need to be flexible and continue to change things as the world continues to design us and make us different people. We need to remember that who you are, who one culture is, and what that culture looks like today might look very different in a year, in a day. Things change all the time, and as designers, we need to continually check that what we have written and what we've designed continues to be suited for the culture or the audience that we're sort of writing for, and just making sure that we're trying to stay up to date and stay sort of relevant with the culture is important. I think we run a lot of tests all the time on wording just to make sure that the wording we're choosing is the best possible wording for a bunch of reasons, for like making sure our metrics are good and stuff, but also to make sure that we are making sense to the audience that we're designing for, and continually refreshing those tasks and coming up with potential new ways to phrase things or to sort of talk to people, and testing those out and then going with the one that works best is like super important.
Well, I don't know about you, but this was a fast event. You're here for about
Is
an
it
hour.
over?
Yeah.
Was it fast?
Wow.
Yeah.
It was really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we still have about 7 minutes. I would like to say a few things. First, I would like to invite the audience to leave a comment or a question. Maybe we can take one or two questions and answer before we finish the event. And also, I'm curious to see what you have to say to the speakers. Like, if you like to say if you like the event, like if you like to say thank you, whatever, send a greetings or a thank you message. I would be happy to hear this and see what you have to say. I wonder if either of you, Willian and Jess, has some closing thoughts before we start to finish, because we are almost there. Is there something that we didn't touch on this topic that you like to say before we finish?
Go,
Yes.
Jess. Ladies first. Go, Jess.
No, I just thought this was a really great conversation, and I'm glad that culture was part of this. I think I said this at the beginning, but because culture can be so complex and not monolithic, it's quite difficult to have a conversation about culture, because it's just so hard to get right and to understand. And the fact that we're talking about this is a really good step to making sure that this is always part of the conversation, and we're always being open-minded and respectful of culture, which can be sometimes sort of neglected. So I thought that was good. And yeah, this has been really great.
Awesome. My closing thoughts are first about this series of episodes you guys are developing. Congratulations, because I think the main point here is to raise awareness, because it is there and somebody has to touch it, you know? So let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I really hope that everybody who watched this live or who's going to watch us later on YouTube learn something from here, and actually try to develop something that was learned here, you know? So congratulations, Caio, on this series. It's been amazing. I'm watching all the episodes, and participating in one was really special to me. And that's pretty much it. I think we covered, and we had this awesome conversation. We shared our thoughts on this topic, which is really important. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah. Check. All the things happen. Yeah, there is a check. I could make a bingo about things that, you should create a bingo, like online meeting bingo, like your mic is muted, check. Something like that. Willian, this was really fun, and honestly, I learned so much because guess what? We have Brazilians, we have Mexicans, we have North Americans folks, we have London, UK people. Should I say UK? How can I say people from London?
Londoners.
Yeah.
Londoners?
Yeah.
Folks from Amsterdam. This was the very first time that we did something like this. I wonder if we can do something like this next year again. But I would love to make this more international. Like, I'm curious to see folks from Asia, for example, or Africa. That would be awesome. And even Australia. Maybe, I know that the timing right now might not be the best for folks over there. But yeah, I love this because it helped me to have this broader vision and see how things are differently. And also, one thing that you said was about like having these conversations. I don't know if you follow the Olympics this year, but it's a lot about statements and discussions about this inclusions, representativeness. Is that the word? Like the Jazz is thinking.
And I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, like the Olympics this year is a lot about representatividade. Help me, William.
Representative? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't
doesn't matter.
remember.
You see, that's the thing with translation and
I
localization.
don't remember.
Yeah.
Representation.
Representation, it is one.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so there is the discussions about even like the clothes that people are using, athletes. Some, I don't know if you're following, but some countries they deny to use like bikinis for some sports, and now they're getting fined for that. That's crazy to think. They should use whatever they feel like. And also the recent U.S. Athlete, she said like, I'm going to focus on my mental health. And that was kind of unprecedented in the sports. So, and now many people are having discussions about this, like about the mental health and stuff. So it is important to have these conversations. And that's how we learn new things. And then we can open, our minds to other things. So, I'm so thankful for having the time. For you, both of you being here with me today. I had so much fun and I learned so much. And so to finish this, I would like to invite everybody to join the next episode. Oh, I messed up over there. It's about accessibility. I wanted to make it right. So this is some of the pictures that we have with everybody that attend the series and spoke here. Next week, we're going to have an episode about accessibility. It's going to be next Thursday, 12 p.m. PDT. And today, the episode was about culture. So if you'd like to check that out and join or see the other episodes, you can just join here. And I think this is it for today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jess.
Thank
you,
you.
William.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Thanks. Bye.
It was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.